we should be live now. I'm hoping that we're live. I remember last time I streamed, or a few times ago when I streamed something like this, I was not live for a while. And let's see what that is. Alright. I've had some trouble with the internet, which is also why I haven't streamed too much lately. But, anyways. I had a feeling that we were going to get some kind of new thing with Sea of Thieves during this Xbox showcase, but I wasn't really sure what it was going to be. And I'm a little bit sorry for the notifications if y'all can hear that. I'm a little bit disappointed about what we got, but we're going to break it down. The new thing that we got for Sea of Thieves at the Xbox showcase today was the announcement for Sea of Thieves Season 17. Which to me feels a little bit premature since this isn't coming out till August, so it feels like we have a long time to wait. Usually with the past announcements that we've had for Sea of Thieves at these Xbox showcases, it's stuff that's like within like sometimes a few weeks. If you remember back with the Pirate's Life announcement, that was, just like 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away, I think. And then other stuff was like maybe like a month away. So this is a little bit odd in my opinion. And I honestly was expecting a little bit different. I thought we might be getting a new set of Tall Tales, and I think a lot of people had that kind of impression, or I thought it was going to be something a little bit different than this. But I am interested in what we got here. So I think what we'll do is we'll first just kind of run through the trailer. I'm sorry if this is laggy. If it's too laggy, I'll just go back and, just make a regular video. But for this, if y'all want, you can comment in the chat about like what you think about the season, what you think about the trailer, and just anything like that, and we can kind of have a conversation about it. So I'll go ahead and start from the beginning, and go from there. And I'll probably pause it here and there just to talk about stuff.
The Smugglers League is always there, but you won't see us.
Breakdown at the end, going
you
frame
won't
by frame.
hear us.
Be adaptable. It's more than moving under moonlight and shadows. You should be ready to take advantage of others' misfortune. Stealing, of course, is always an option. Just do whatever it takes to get the job done. You are pirates, after all.
Welcome, my friends, to the Smugglers League. You're paying for that.
Alright, so that was the trailer there. Decent trailer. I got excited when we first saw it because it was like, oh, voice acting and everything. I kind of thought it was more in the Tall Tale line. But I guess some of the stuff I'm confused about with this is like, it seems like a lot of the focus is on these new type of gunpowder kegs, which are these highly explosive new tools in the game. Is that enough to get players interested in Season 17? Because we already have like the Athena kegs, which I think right now are probably the most powerful kegs we have in the game. We have the Stronghold kegs. Both of those are pretty easy to acquire, the Stronghold kegs obviously being a little bit more easy to acquire at skeleton forts and stuff. And then just regular gunpowder kegs. If you have 2 gunpowder kegs, you can sink any ship like relatively quickly. It doesn't really matter, how big the explosive is. I mean, obviously a cool explosion like that is cool, but is that enough for a gameplay feature? I don't know. I'd like to hear what y'all think in the comments, but there are some interesting things that I did notice as I was I watched through it a few times. I was going to talk about this earlier in the day, but I was actually playing the game while the Xbox Showcase was going on. So one of the things I did notice earlier was it looks like, I think we've already had that. I think that's just a regular outpost one. So nothing too new with that, I don't think. And we move in a bit. I think that was the Mysterious Stranger's sword. So nothing really new with that. And I think this is, so from what we saw, you see later in the trailer, it talks about how there's going to be new voyages for this. I'm assuming that this is a new faction in the game, like the Smugglers faction or something. which is cool. It's been a while since we got like a brand new faction into the game. Really, the last one I guess you could say was, I guess the guilds technically count as like a faction with like the sovereign. That's kind of like the latest one. But otherwise, we haven't really had a new traditional faction in the game. So it seems like we're going to get a few different voyages. I'm assuming one of them is stealing weapons, and that's probably what this is a reference to. This is more of a cinematic version of that. But I think it's probably going to be have like weapon caches that maybe we steal from somewhere. And then the new gunpowder keg things are probably going to be another type of one that we steal. So, I don't know. Interesting, I guess. We'll have to learn more. I have it muted right now just so that it's, you know, easier to talk over. I'm interested to see if they change anything with Grog in the game, because obviously that's kind of stayed the same since the very beginning, and they've talked a little bit about it throughout this trailer. Another thing that's kind of making me think that this is going to be a new faction rather than just like some new tools, and like it's not going to be like a season 12 or season 14 type of update. I think it's going to be like a whole faction on its own. Is that we have what looks like new treasure items for this group. So we have this. This is completely new, and you notice like the symbol over the place. You have like her little workshop desk. You can actually turn one of the skulls in here, and that opens up that door in there. So this is a real place in the game. It's not just for the cinematic. So you can actually go check it out. So one of the cool things that could be with this update is maybe that the Smugglers faction is kind of similar to what I talked about in that Reaper like wish list video that I did a few weeks ago, where I wanted kind of like Reaper merchants that would be kind of showing up across the Sea of Thieves world. So maybe instead of them being at like outposts like traditional factions in the game, or like Reaper Tide where they have like their own specific island, maybe they're kind of like in the shadows, like in caves or like in other like hidden places across the world, and that would be interesting. I think that might make it complicated for players because I often see people not know where to turn in treasure, even just in the current system where I think it's pretty straightforward as it is right now. You either go to Reaper's Hideout or you go to the outpost, but you still see people leave like treasure just sitting on the docks or whatever because they don't know where to take anything right now already. So I might be wrong in that. I don't know. It seems interesting. I was surprised when I saw them choose this specific place to have this scene in, and not just some kind of generic place. So it seems intentional to me. And then these are the new explosives that we have in the game. Yeah, so that's just basically them talking about it. Now, one of the things I saw, and I'll pull up on Twitter real quick, um, before the showcase, and I actually saw it after the showcase, so it kind of, I didn't really get the surprise, to be honest, because I was playing the game, like I said. We can look on here, and on Sea of Thieves' social account, they actually were showing like teasers for this, and you see in all these teasers, it has some of those gold bottles there, but it has this like rope with a fuse. And one of the things that I'm thinking of is maybe that we could like lay down like that fuse. So maybe, for example, let's say for me personally, like if I were to set up some kegs at the Sovereign tent and waited for someone to show up, and then I could like set the fuse so like I could have like the rope kind of going down. I could have it go all the way down the dock. So instead of having to have like a firebomb close by or have a trap set, I could light the fuse and then I could kind of go up along the dock and then blow up the Sovereign tent with the people inside selling the stuff. I think that would be really cool, and that would make me really excited for the season. I feel like that's what they're teasing with all these different things, but they haven't confirmed that. But it would be really cool if it's something where it's like you could have. It probably wouldn't be infinite length, but something where you could basically like place down for a set amount of length, a huge thing. So I see some comments in here. I do think the new season looks cool. Like you have to be sneaky, but there's not a lot at the moment. It'll probably change because it's an early look. I agree with that too. That's why I'm trying to hold some judgment for this because obviously this is supposed to just be an announcement of it, not like a full in-depth everything that's coming. And we have all the way till August, so they'll probably kind of slow drip information to us over the coming months of it. I still think it's a little bit weird that they released its information so early on. Like I would have expected something that was coming throughout like season 16, because we were only like I think like a month into season 16. We haven't even got the next month's update because that's supposed to come this week. So interesting stuff there. Someone else said season 17 now with vertical kegs. Yeah, basically they're vertical kegs, and they're bigger too. So my kind of concern with that is like, I think the problem when I look at these like type of new voyages in the game, my first thought is how long are people gonna be doing these voyages? So like with the Skull Siren song or this new Reaper voyage that we just got for Sea of Thieves season 16, both of those I kind of was able to tell like, okay, people are not going to do this very long because you're marked on the map, you have all these different things that are like making you at risk. So a lot of people play solo or they might play like in a duo or stuff, and they just don't want to take that risk. They don't want to have that issue. So they rather just go to something else that's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit safer. And I feel like with this, if you're gonna have a voyage where you have to go and get a lot of these gunpowder kegs, that's gonna be like a huge explosion. That's just waiting for trouble essentially to have on your ship. I mean, one of the golden rules of Sea of Thieves is don't bring kegs on your ship if you don't want to lose your ship. So, is this gonna be something that people use? I don't know. But oh, you can also see that trail too. So I think that gives more credence to what I was saying that you might be able to place it down. A lot of this reminds me, if you remember the old like mercenary voyages that we got like in the first year or two of Sea of Thieves. When I saw this trailer, I really thought like, oh, it's just the mercenary voyages again, like where we had like the gunpowder voyages and all that kind of stuff. So I'm I'm really struggling to figure out what the new thing is here. So the only thing I could think of is the fuse thing, like I was talking about, and probably it being a whole new faction and it being a little bit more geared to that. Maybe it's trying to build on top of what was started with season 14, where season 14 was kind of introducing new tools for like, sneaking around stuff. This is kind of given that playstyle more of a permanent fixture in the game. So like you can then they can kind of like aim Reapers for more of like the aggressive type of PvP and have this be more the stealthy type of PvP. And I would be really interested in that for obvious reasons, because that's the main thing that I like to do. So I think there's potential with this. It's not the update that I was expecting or the announcement that I was expecting from this, but I think there is some interesting stuff with this. So we can check out another view of the Reaper rowboat. I think this view is interesting because it definitely shows that this voyage is going to be somewhat dynamic, where I think we'll at least have that voyage where you're stealing weapon, probably like weapon caches or something like that. Where from, who knows? But it seems like for these kegs, you'll be able to find them in lots of different places on islands, in shipwrecks, that kind of stuff. So, kind of interesting there. So, new smuggling voyages. I hope it's a little bit more interesting than just, you know, digging up kegs or finding kegs. This, I think, is just meant to be comedic. Obviously, I don't think any changes are coming to the grapple gun. I could see them like making this so that I mean I feel like this is just for the cinematic, but it would be cool if they amped up a little bit of the social features with this update too. Like maybe change up how the grog is done and stuff, or maybe this is going to be like a new tankard. I could see that being a thing too. Maybe you sell a certain amount of these things for the voyage, and then you get this as a tankard as an unlock or something. That'd be pretty cool. And that ship is stacked with them too. I just noticed that. And honestly, I guess I see the scene, and like obviously the ship is sinking really quickly, and this is a cinematic, of course, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But does anyone else see that and just not think like that could be done with like two regular stronghold kegs or a couple regular gunpowder kegs? I don't know. I'm trying to be hopeful for this because I think there's a good amount of potential for it, but I'm also just looking at it and I'm like, what is the thing that we're supposed to be excited about with this? If they showed off like the fuse thing that I was talking about more, like, and not have to let us just speculate on that being a thing, then that would be better. But I don't know. So that kind of covers what the trailer is. I'd be interested to hear more of y'all's thoughts. I know some people have commented already. We kind of been talking about that throughout this. Someone said they can't wait to get 2 voyages for digging up kegs. I'm really hoping that they have listened. Like, if you saw my review for season 14 of the game, one of the complaints that I had, or I wouldn't even say complaints, but I say critiques for that season was all of the new tools and stuff are great, but without like something to do with those new tools, it's not that fun. So maybe this is trying to help address that, where you now we're getting voyages that are more designed for like sneaking around and that kind of stuff. So Crosshair asks, are these the Dark Brethren? And no. To me, it doesn't seem like it's the Dark Brethren. This seems like it's a whole new faction, which is what is really surprising about this whole announcement. I really thought it was going to be a new set of Tall Tales because there was like 2 year gap between Pirate's Life and Monkey Island. It's been about 2 years since Monkey Island to now. I really thought it was going to be a new set of Tall Tales that was going to deal with like Flameheart and the story going on right now, and maybe like bridge into like what's going on for the next couple seasons. It would have been a perfect opportunity to do that right now. And I think that would have explained why maybe a lot of people were disappointed with like season 15 and 16 in terms of like the content that we got. It would have made sense if they were working on a whole new set of Tall Tales in the background. I could explain that. I could have seen Dark Brethren be a new set of Tall Tales, or have Dark Brethren be like a faction and more of a presence in the game. I don't know. I I'm interested. We definitely need more information. Part of me, this is gonna sound weird because obviously, it's I like talking about Sea of Thieves. I like having stuff to, new things to discuss with y'all about the game. I kind of wish we just didn't see this trailer until it got a little bit closer. Like, if we don't have anything really to talk about with it other than just kind of, there's not much here, like, not much substance. It almost would have been better not to have anything to talk about at all. I don't know. Crosshair says we need a new Tall Tale for the story, no more crossover ones. I would really like an original set of Tall Tales again, because I feel like Pirate's Life is some of the best Tall Tales that we've had in the game. Monkey Island, well, I think they've had their issues, and I've talked about that many times in the past. It had a lot of great things that I did, like the voice acting and a lot of the other stuff that they did with that, some of the more cinematic stuff with those Tall Tales. I think the issue, or I wouldn't say issue, the thing that I would like to see is we take all that knowledge that you've learned from it and then apply it to an original story. Because the old Tall Tales, if you've played any of those ones from the original Shores of Gold set of Tall Tales outside of the Shores of Gold, they're pretty bad. I mean, they're very boring. They're very, basic type of voyage with the loose narrative going on with it. There's some that I like. I like the Wild Rose one. I think that was fun, even though it's very simple. The Shores of Gold is pretty fun, just going to the island, going through the layer and stuff. But I feel like with everything they've learned from Pirate's Life and Monkey Island, they could make some really great original Tall Tales, especially doing it for the Dark Brethren or Flameheart or any of these things in the game. I feel like the only reason that they stick away from Tall Tales now is because the complaint that often comes with Tall Tales is that it doesn't add anything to the main game. So it's kind of similar to the problem with Arena. So Arena was kind of a similar situation where if they put resources into updating that, only a fraction amount of the players are playing that at any given time. Same thing with the Tall Tales. Most people, they play the Tall Tales once or twice or maybe a handful of times to finish the accommodations, never touch it again. And most people just play the main game. So usually when Tall Tales come out, people are upset and saying, hey, we need content for the main game. Where's, all this stuff? I think there's ways to mitigate that. Maybe we can talk about that. Either talk about this more in this stream if y'all are interested, or we can talk about that in another video in the future. But someone else commented, I really hope they start moving the story again. I literally cannot remember anything story related since stopping Adventures. I was a huge fan of Adventures. I think it was a mistake to stop them. I get why people didn't like the Adventures. They don't like the time limited aspect of it. And I think part of that was how Rare was doing that, but part of that was people not understanding the benefit of having it be time limited. If you have time limited story adventures like what we were getting, you can make big changes in the game and big changes in the Sea of Thieves world that you can't do with a Tall Tale. Like what we saw with Golden Sands Outpost turning into Port Merrick. You can't really have a Tall Tale that's covering, having a battle and then whichever side won becomes, turns that outpost into whichever it's supposed to be. Same with resurrecting Flameheart or saving Pendragon. The story decision, events that we had, those were the best parts of Adventure, and I think those should have remained. The other stuff, you could have maybe made a case for them to be Tall Tales, but honestly, I was perfectly happy with how adventures were going in the game until they stopped. So it's a sad reality. I think the problem is it just took up development time. I really hope this is more than just keg runs. Seems a little underwhelming. I really agree with that. I feel like if they were going to show something, they should have shown a little bit more or just not shown anything at all. Like unless I'm really missing something, the only thing I can think and the thing that I think to be excited about is if this is a brand new faction in the game and this is like kind of on par with stuff like the Reaper's Bones, Athena's Fortune, all that stuff. If you're a new player, you'll have no idea what's going on, like me. Yeah, I have a couple friends that are vaguely familiar with Sea of Thieves, but don't really play the game much. And they saw the trailer. We were watching the Xbox showcase at the same time. We were kind of messaging each other at the same time, and he was just messaging me like, "Hey, what's the new thing with this? This just looks like a basic trailer for Sea of Thieves. Is this supposed to be some kind of like big announcement?" And I had to message him back like, "Yeah, I have no idea what this is supposed to be referencing." So I was watching it live with him, and it's all just kind of the same stuff. We have bigger explosions. We have the return of the rowboat kegs, which is cool, but not anything new. And probably, honestly, maybe the reason why it didn't come back in season 16 was because they needed to pad out season 17. It's a little bit more of a pessimistic idea, but that could explain why it didn't return when it would have made sense to return for season 16. I don't know. I do think there's hope. I am excited for new voyages in the game because I think one of the problems that I've had with some of these recent seasons, like, season 14 and 12 and 11 and stuff, is that they weren't adding like new activities to do. So with season 15 was part of it, but mostly with season 16 and it seems like this, we're getting new like activities to do in the game with these new voyages. The real question would be, are these voyages any good? I have to imagine that Rare is not just going to give us just some basic go fetch a gunpowder keg voyage because they've done that kind of stuff for limited time events and they did it for the mercenary voyages in the past. That's not a season update. I think even they know that. I don't think they would do that, to be honest. Maybe I'm having too much faith in them, but I just don't think that. I think there's definitely more, and we're just not seeing it yet. Um, I'll answer. I just saw someone popped in the chat there, but one interesting thing that they could do with this being like a new item here is it looks like you could open up these little weapon stashes. It'd be really cool if we already have like the ammo crate that's in the game where you can pick it up and you can get ammo whenever you need. Imagine if you had a crate where you could take it wherever you want and it's like a own personal armory. So then you could change your weapon wherever you want. I was talking about this with a friend recently because I was tucking at Reaper's hideout, and I'm like, I would like to have a way to switch my weapon, but I don't have any way to switch my weapon without my ship. And it would have been cool to have like an armory there. But imagine if we had like a portable armory that you could put like on a rowboat or wherever you were, and like that would open up the possibilities for so many things because there's been times like say at a skeleton fort I wanted to tuck there, and it would be useful if I could use the grapple gun to grapple up to like the tower, and then you could like grapple the armory crate or whatever up with you, and then you could switch your weapon back to whatever you want it to be. That would be a really cool addition. That when I just looked at this, where I see like the empty boxes and kind of like the lid opening and closing there, that kind of gives me hope that maybe those are some of the things that these are being teased for. It also kind of lends credence when you have like the ammo crates being right here too. Just just a thought. I think that would be really interesting. But let me see what some of y'all mentioned here. A new faction is cool, but I hope these aren't reskin voyages. I have hoped this is just a tease to a larger update. I hope so too. My only concern is I feel like season 16 and 17 are kind of like them getting like course correcting essentially. And I feel like season 18 is probably where we'll see like the better type of season updates start to happen again. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe season 17 will be where bigger stuff happens, but I'm trying to both be hopeful for season 17, but I'm also trying to tamper my expectations because I'm already a little bit disappointed that we're not getting new Tall Tales or anything more interesting. When I saw that Sea of Thieves getting something announced today, I thought it was going to be something like that, and it ended up not being that. And then obviously with season 16, a whole Reaper update ended up being still a fun update, but not the Reaper update that maybe we all wanted. Same with season 15. So I haven't really been that happy with a lot of the recent updates in the game outside of, say, season 14. Someone said, I think it would be cool if this new faction was not affiliated with Pirate Lord or Reapers, maybe trying to make gold from both of them. And I think that's what this is. I think this is going to be like a kind of like a third party type of thing. And what I would really hope is that maybe this is more focused on the sneaky aspect of the community and not like the more aggressive side of the community. So if you want to say like season 14 was kind of like the setup for all of this, like in terms of like getting like the tools, like the blowpipe and the traps and everything, this is kind of like the fulfillment of that and bringing it to the next level with having like a fully fleshed out faction with voyages and everything to go along with that. I could see that maybe being what this is. We see this happen in the past where like something is like introduced in a few seasons before and then it kind of gets expanded upon later on. So maybe that's what's going on here. I would be really excited if that's kind of the case because I haven't really I like PvP in the game obviously, but Reaper's Bones is not really something that I'm the biggest fan of because if I'm going to be like a sneaky player, I'm not going to go put up a Reaper emissary flag. It just doesn't really make sense for the type of gameplay that I do. So if they can kind of come up with more of like a way to do like sneaking voyages and all that kind of stuff with this, that would be pretty interesting. So also see, yeah, the community doesn't seem happy. A lot of criticism on Twitter and YouTube. Come on, Rare. Could be cool if this could be a doubloon focus faction too. Doubloon focus would be really cool. I feel like that needs to make a comeback because doubloons don't really have any usefulness right now, but that might be a stretch. Milan said it would be cool if, like he said, you could have a portable armory, but hopefully to add to that, we finally get to save weapon loadouts. I'm not sure what you mean by weapon loadouts. Like if you're meaning like what pairings you have, like, you know, you can click a button and you get like your blunderbuss and sword together or something like that. You might need to comment again and explain that a little bit more to me what you mean by saving weapon loadouts, because from right now it seems like it's doing that. But I am interested. Let's go on to see like the actual announcement. So we'll look at this. This is what they posted. It's basically just the trailer we just watched. And I guess we could scroll down and just kind of see if anything stands out from what people have said on here. I was really hoping for an Hourglass update, but it looks like they haven't learned much after closing Arena. This kind of goes back to what I was just saying about the Tall Tales. With Hourglass has the same problem that Arena has and Tall Tales have, which is why invest development time in something that a lot of players aren't playing and probably won't ever play. Even if you spend a lot of time updating the mode, make it perfect, I think from its design, it's flawed. It's not a bad mode, but it's flawed in the sense that it doesn't fulfill what a lot of players come to Sea of Thieves for. For someone like me, I come to Sea of Thieves for sneaking around and stuff. And Arena, I think, did a lot of this stuff in terms of like the Sea of Thieves fulfillment of PvP a lot better. In the Arena, you could sneak up and you could go and hide and tuck at the turn-in station and be ready for someone. You could go and board someone and try to steal the treasure. It had, you know, digging up treasure. Obviously, it's kind of a, you know, it's a pirate game, so you want to have digging up treasure and stuff. A lot of that stuff is just missing from Hourglass, which just makes the mode not that fun for a lot of players. Even players that are good at PvP, I've talked to many, both either that I know personally or just when I'm sailing around and I interact with strangers in the game. A lot of people just don't like Hourglass as a concept. I do think though that Rare should just simply add a time limit to it. If they made it so that every match was like 15 or 20 minutes long max, or whoever sunk each other first was how that mode worked, I think that would bring a lot of players in, because the main reason that I stick away from it now is because I don't want to get involved in a 3-hour fight that's mostly meaningless, if we're being honest. So, what else we got here? Weapon pairs and skins, so you don't have to fumble through everything you've purchased. Just a quality of life update or a change, but nothing big. I think something a little bit better than that, and I'd like to hear what you think. Instead of having weapon loadouts, like what you were just saying, like pairing the skins and stuff, I would like to see an ability just to favorite any type of cosmetics. So basically, anything that you favorite would show up at the top of your list. So instead of, it kind of just filling in wherever it is, you can like select which ones you use the most and kind of put it at the front of your list. And I think that would be good across the board because I've had the same thing where I'm trying to like kind of find the different skins that I like to use the most, and it would be nice to just have it right at the top. So it is interesting the 40th anniversary of the game. I do really like that logo. Someone mentioned that there. This is kind of the same thought that I kind of had in my mind. Sea of Thieves players really must be working on something good. Grand Maritime Union. What is that? Is that Grand Maritime something? I don't remember exactly what that's supposed to represent. Tall Tales, Dark Brethren, Pirates Life 2. I don't think we're going to get Pirates Life 2. It's possible, but I feel like that story is complete and they probably will move on to something else. I'm just going to move down because that meme is kind of driving me crazy. uh, some sort of map expansion, that would have been cool. We've talked about that in previous videos before about, lots of ideas of what they could do to expand the map of the game. But Sea of the Dam raids, that would be really awesome. And just bug fixing season. They tried that with season 9. That did not go well. I don't want to see just a season that's only focused on bug fixes because it just never really works out that well, to be honest. But someone said that 2 new items and a voyage. I feel like it's more than one voyage. I might be wrong on that. And I don't know what the 2 new items. I see the gunpowder kegs, and then if we're talking about the little like flare thing, or even like the weapon crate thing, the hard part is since it's just an announcement trailer and there's no like blog or anything to go along with this, there's nothing for us to really have as concrete knowledge about this season. So really, we're just gonna have to sit here and wait for the next 3 months for it. So a little bit disappointing with that. I wish we got a little bit more with this announcement. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for this update. I think that's the best thing I can say about it. I think there's a lot that Rare could do with it. I would really love to see like the smuggler faction here not be part of the outpost group. Like I feel like we've already had kind of like the outpost group versus like Flameheart and all of that. I would really like to see this be like a third party, have them inside like the caves and stuff on like different islands. I don't know, something like that. And then maybe you could even make it so that I don't know. This might get a little bit too confusing, but you could make it in the lore that they're all starting to fight against each other, and maybe these smugglers in the future start aligning with the Hunter's Call group, and those start like teaming up together, and then you have like a 3-way war, and it could just be an all-out battle, and then it could crescendo into this epic season with everything going on. Maybe like season 20 is like this huge, massive battle or whatever. Probably not going to happen, but there's a lot of stuff they could do. I really hope that the Sea of Thieves story gets a little bit more engaging because I feel like ever since that adventure where Flameheart returned, the Sea of Thieves storyline just came to a screeching halt, where it really should have just picked up and gone full steam ahead. Nothing really has happened that's been that interesting. Obviously, we had the Burning Blade show up and the skeleton camps, and those are cool. And for somehow, some way, because of those camps and stuff, he got special knowledge that led to the voyage that we have now, which I guess this leads is going to be more knowledge that leads to something else. And now Flameheart's basically just acquiring knowledge, I guess. That's basically my summation of the storyline as someone that's just kind of not that engaged with it, that hasn't really been following it, as just kind of more of a casual player looking in. That's what I'm kind of understanding as the story. So let's see some other stuff that I see here. They should have had something to prevent panic running to Reapers to sell the new skull. I don't know what you mean exactly in terms of panic selling or panic running. I feel like that's just part of the game. The only thing that they could do is similar to what they did with Skull Siren Song, where they make it so that the ship moves slower if you have the skull on your ship. I really don't want them to do that because with the Skull Siren Song, that just made it, when you're not being attacked by anyone, made the voyage super boring and way slower than it normally would have been. I feel like with that, it just becomes a thing of, you know, being more strategic. You either have to counter them while they're doing the voyage at the island, or you have to counter them when they're at Reaper's hideout. And just you have to choose between the two, or you try to get them in between. But you know, the first two options are your best bet in terms of trying to steal it. When I try to steal some of the new, I think you said accommodations, but I'm assuming you meant trying to steal those gold to finish accommodations. It's hard enough to find someone doing it already, but when I do find one, they're either run to Reapers or cancel the voyage so I wouldn't get the skull. That's why I usually tuck out Reaper's Hideout, to be honest, because anytime that you try to go and sneak up on someone, if they catch you sneaking up on them and they, you know, panic, they can just cancel the voyage and then that's lost. So if you, just a recommendation for anyone, if you are trying to go up to an island, you see someone there, and you're just trying to steal it, wait till the sky beacon starts. Don't sneak up on them before that, because your best bet is to wait for them to be distracted with the final battle, and by that point, they're not going to cancel it, most likely. If they try to cancel it, you can probably get on their ship before that and maybe stop them from canceling it, maybe finish it yourself. Hard to say, but just a thought. But I prefer going to Reaper's Hideout if I'm going to try to steal it. But I've done both ways for this. I've done about like half and half in terms of what I've stolen from it. I've honestly only done the voyage like twice now. I've stolen the scrolls the rest of the time that I've sold it. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything that I had to talk about this. I thought it would be more fun to do a live stream. I think it did turn out to be more fun to do it this way. I'll stick around if anyone still has more to talk about with this. But I guess to wrap up, season 17, I think, is an interesting announcement, but without more concrete evidence about what the specifics of what we're actually getting, it's hard to say whether or not this was a good announcement or not. I think it would have been better just to have stayed quiet on this from them. I think they should have just not released this and maybe just make a general Sea of Thieves trailer if they really wanted to show off something at the Xbox showcase. Maybe have some kind of limited time event in the game, and you could have had that around Flameheart, and just it doesn't have to be super, you know, well developed or anything. Just to have like some kind of limited time event with like some kind of voyage, kind of like what they did I think back in January with like the sea forts and like the ghost ships and stuff. That could have, you know, been decent, and you know, been enough to kind of hype people up for Sea of Thieves and get some new people in. Because really, the reason why you have these trailers at the Xbox showcase as opposed to, you know, just releasing them to the Sea of Thieves community is because you're trying to get new players that don't already play Sea of Thieves or maybe have stopped playing Sea of Thieves to come back to the game. Does this trailer accomplish that? I don't really know. And when you say that it's not coming until August, I feel like people are going to forget about this type of release once that comes out. So, lots of interesting stuff. I see some more comments in here from, I might be pronouncing this wrong, but Hilbert, I think, says, I'm actually really hyped. A whole new faction sounds amazing. I personally am really hoping that it's a new faction and not just, you know, some side voyages. I think that also gives more credence to the being a new faction, because if you have to think about it, in the past, we used to get voyages that could just come from basically anywhere. You just kind of bought them from different places. You could buy them from like the arena, or you buy them from the trading company places and stuff. Now, all voyages are either limited time, they're special voyages, or they're tied to one of the factions. So I think no matter what, we have to get a new faction for these voyages to live in. So I think a new faction is guaranteed for this, to be honest. It sounds like a good faction for solo players with sneaky voyages, but most people sound like they dislike it. I would question whether or not it would be good for solo players. We'll have to wait and see about it a little bit more. I think if we only get one voyage and it's only about those gunpowder kegs, this is a no for solo players. I don't think solo players are going to want to tackle having a bunch of kegs on their ship, especially like highly explosive kegs, not just regular kegs. But even regular kegs are probably going to do just as much damage as these kegs, to be honest. Wizard said, was really hoping for an Hourglass rework to attract more players. Hourglass is going into the same direction as Arena. Yeah, Hourglass, they needed to intervene early on. They needed to intervene probably back, I would say around season 10, around the 1 year anniversary of that mode being added. The problems for that mode were present from the very start. And I truly do believe that a time limit would be the simplest and most effective solution for Rare to implement. I don't think it would be that difficult in terms of development for it. There's other stuff that we've talked about in the past that it could do. I think a shrinking circle that maybe, for the beginning portion of it, it just got smaller and smaller until it got to a final point where it kind of stayed the same. That would help because one of the biggest problems with Hourglass right now is people just keep circling around and just kind of run around and nothing ever happens. I think there's a lot you could do with Hourglass, but I think just the concept of it in general is flawed in terms of it just doesn't really fulfill a lot of what people come to PvP and Sea of Thieves for. It's mostly focused on 1v1 ship combat. Yes, you can board and stuff, but it's mostly just the 1v1 ship combat. It's not like what Arena was, where Arena was a lot more than that. And I think even if they were to rework it and make it, significantly better, I don't think it's going to bring people in unless you fundamentally change what Hourglass is. Good point, but someone else said, good point, but I should be able to steal this however I want. It's advertised as PvP voyage, but I can't take the skull out of the coffin if it's not my voyage, which just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I mean, my counter to that is that's the same for most stuff. Like if you think about like a skeleton fort or something, you can't steal the treasure that's in the fort until they finish it either. So yes, with this voyage you can't like complete their voyage, but that'd be the same about any voyage. The only reason that people are upset about it with this specific one is because most people aren't spending tons of time trying to steal the other stuff. It'd be the same like with say, like the Legend of the Veil. If someone was trying to steal the treasure at the end of it, you could potentially just cancel the voyage and then they'd lose out on that. So this is more just a core voyage problem and stealing from people doing a voyage as opposed to specifically with this voyage. But yeah. Hilbert said those kegs looked like extremely heavy loot. They're as big as a barrel. Maybe they make a big boom, but also take more damage to explode, like the Reaper robots that are a bit more robust. I could see that. I could see them maybe being a little bit more reinforced. Maybe instead of gunpowder, or maybe instead of being able to be shot with, say, just a regular like flintlock or something, you have to use a cannon to explode it, or you have to use that new like fuse. So you have to kind of like light the fuse to be able to explode it. Maybe that's kind of the way to make it so that people that are like solo or people that just are antsy about carrying kegs on their ship, that might be the way to get them to actually do it. Because then the only way that you could explode those kegs is if a cannonball hit the keg or if someone got on the ship and lit the fuse. Is that enough? I don't know. But I could see those maybe being more reinforced than were before. I'm not sure how they would do it, but I would love to see Hourglass TDM mode with points where you fight on islands for its ships, but you can only fight hand to hand. Yeah, I guess the problem with a lot of the updates that people talk about with Hourglass is they often just fall into, well, that's basically just Arena. Arena did kind of that, which I mean, Arena didn't really have TDM mode like what you're saying, but Arena had where people were on land fighting for a piece of treasure, and that was probably the best that you're going to get, I think, for a TDM mode. I don't know. I just think Hourglass has a lot of issues that, from its core design, that's not the best priority for Sea of Thieves to take to try to spend a lot of time developing. That's why I'm trying to kind of think of like small changes that they could do, like small tweaks to what Hourglass is to help make it better. So stuff like a time limit, stuff like maybe a shrinking circle, those kind of changes I think would help the mode and wouldn't take that much time to develop. But Yeah. Hourglass, I know there's some big fans of Hourglass. I would like to get more into Hourglass because if there was a time limit to it, that would be something that I could predictably do and like say like, okay, I have, 40 minutes to play Sea of Thieves before I have to go and do whatever I'm doing that day. I could play like a round or two of Hourglass. That's the kind of mindset that I want to be in with Hourglass. I want it to be similar to say like if I'm getting on Fortnite, oh, I can play 2 rounds of Fortnite because I know that's gonna be like max 20 minutes long for a match. I just can't do that with Hourglass. Hourglass matches can last from anywhere from like a couple minutes to 3 plus hours. So until they fix that core issue, Hourglass is just not going to be a winner for me. I hope that when the new kegs explode, they leave a broken keg so you would still get something after exploding. Someone doing these. Yeah, that's always been the problem for me with any of these keg voyages. Like whenever we had like the mercenary voyages in the past, like and you'd go and like dig up and you just find kegs and stuff. I never really understood the point of doing those voyages because I just I just left them there usually. I just kind of didn't take them with me. So yeah, if the voyage is just digging up kegs, then it's probably not going to be a win. But we did see in this trailer other types of treasure, so I don't think it's going to be just a keg voyage like people are kind of getting worried about. Obviously, we saw like these new rum bottles. This is a new treasure item here for sure. And then I am almost certain that this weapon cache is going to be like the ammo crates, but it's probably going to be like a portable armory, which that will probably be the best feature of the season if that's true, because that'll unlock so much potential for lots of really fun scenarios. Wizard says, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this just isn't it. There's so much to be expanded on in this game other than this. It just makes the game more bloated with half baked updates. Yeah, I I'm I kind of agree with you, but I also think that if we're right about this being a brand new faction that's more focused on stealthy type of PvP, which is not really it's like been something that's been always part of the game, but not officially part of the game in terms of like an actual like path to play for. It wasn't like Reapers, where Reapers was kind of like a straightforward PvP, aggressive PvP path to go for, or the PvE side of stuff with like Merchants Alliance and that kind of stuff. If if that's what this faction's for, I think that's a great update for season 17. If we're right about these crates being for weapon crates, I think that's a great thing. But just in general, I think there is stuff to be hopeful for with this update, but we have to wait and see more. Uh, Dave said it's a bit early to be doing a breakdown for the trailer. It's just CGI. It's not really gameplay. I mean, I kind of already addressed this. I think Sea of Thieves probably shouldn't have put this trailer out so soon when the update's not coming out till August. But if it's Sea of Thieves news and something as big as what's coming out for a new season, I'm gonna talk about it probably like every other Sea of Thieves creator. So I don't really see a reason why we wouldn't do a breakdown of it. I think obviously a trailer like this would make sense to break down. So even if it's CGI, like I was saying earlier, even though this is CGI, we can gather like what this is representing to us. So, Wizard said, "True. This is a good expansion on season 14, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I think this is an expansion on season 14. The only critique I think we could say, if you were talking about your previous comment about half baked updates, this might have been a better reception if this came with season 14. If this was like kind of combined with what we got with those new tools added in season 14 as like one bigger update, then people would be a lot more excited about this, I think. But I think when you have these kind of spread out a little bit more, it makes it a little bit harder. Like imagine if we had season 13 last year with, the Burning Blade and Scouting Camps, and then we also got, the new additions with the Reaper stuff this time too. Dave also put out, it was put out to please Xbox, not for the fans, be real. And, I mean, it's still new Sea of Thieves news that we're going to talk about. I don't think I'm being unfair about this. I'm trying to be pretty hopeful for what we're getting, but I'm also going to be realistic about what I'm looking at. There's nothing wrong about reacting to new Sea of Thieves news as a Sea of Thieves channel And obviously, you clicked on this live stream, so you must be interested in this. So, or you just hopped in here to kind of be a downer and kind of be annoying to people that are interested in breaking this down and reacting to the news. So, I don't really know what your issue is, but there's lots to gather from this trailer, even though it's just all CGI. We can take a lot from it, which we've already kind of gone over. Wizard said if it wasn't for the fans, it would not come out. Updates are for the fans, and they used Xbox Showcase to put it out there like every other game. Yeah. Now, I do agree in this. Like, I mentioned it earlier. I feel like the trailer that we got here was a little bit of an odd one because what is the Xbox Game Showcase really meant for? It's meant to the trailer that Sea of Thieves is putting there is to bring new players or players that stopped playing Sea of Thieves back into the game. It wasn't really meant to for like us players that have been playing for a long time. Obviously, we're gonna gather a lot from this, but it's really designed as a marketing tool to get more people into the game. Which is why I was saying earlier, it might have made more sense to have some kind of like event to have happen maybe like not this week, but maybe like the week after that they could market as kind of like a story event for the game with like Flameheart and stuff. Could just be like a new limited time voyage or something, but just something that could be easy to say like, hey, this is on Game Pass, go check it out. It's available next week or something. And if they didn't want to announce it this soon, but you know, to Dave's point, this was all in Rare in terms of what they wanted to show. If Xbox wanted to show, they said, you know, to Rare, okay, you have, you know, a minute 44 to show something off in the Xbox Showcase today. We want you to show something off for the game because it's a good showcase of what's on Game Pass. Rare says, okay, well, I guess we'll show off whereas for Season 17. That's what they went for with this, but they could have done something else. They could have shown off, you know, what's coming for, you know, the rest of Season 16. They could have showed off a new event for Season 16. They could have even shown like a little packed mini thing preview of like what's going to be out for the rest of the year for Sea of Thieves. Like kind of like a compilation of like, here's what to expect for the rest of 2025 for Sea of Thieves. And it just kind of shows like a little bit of the Smugglers Tide update with Season 17 and a little bit of Season 18. But that's kind of my thoughts with that. Wizard said, I don't know if I already read this one, but if it was, oh, I already read that one, but Wizard said, cool, but if Smuggler's Bay is expanded for this faction, like a mini outpost, yeah, it would be cool if Smuggler's Bay was used for this. I could see that. We saw in the trailer that Wanderer's Refuge is another place that they were at, so if you see right here, this is at Wanderer's Refuge underneath like the main part of the island in one of the caves. So that's something you can see there. So I have a feeling that maybe it would be an interesting way for this faction to work where it has like little outposts on current islands that aren't specifically like actual outposts. Dave said the whole Xbox showcase is more about sales. Xbox is holding Rare back in a sense. Same with the whole Battle.net thing. This was about sales. I mean, Battle.net thing, yeah, that was just a Microsoft push to get, you know, more money. But yeah, obviously Microsoft wanted something to show off for Sea of Thieves, but that's kind of like when your boss comes in and says like, "Hey, what are you working on? We want to, you know, tell like whoever like what's going on with you." That's kind of like what this is. The Xbox Showcase is kind of meant to have everyone be able to see like what are Xbox's developers working on, and we're able to judge what Sea of Thieves is working on here. And I don't really know if how you'd say Xbox is holding Rare back. I feel like without Xbox, Sea of Thieves just would not exist. I don't think Sea of Thieves was profitable enough when it first started because a lot of us want to forget Sea of Thieves was not a success when it first released. You know, I loved the game when it first came out. Was a day one player. I know some of you probably in the chat probably are, but most other studios, if they didn't have the backing of Microsoft and Xbox, would have moved on to another project. But with the backing of Xbox, Rare was able to continue working on Sea of Thieves and make it into the game that we all either love to critique or love to enjoy still to this day. So I also would say I feel like Rare is just having some issues with management in the background. I don't even think it's the Xbox fault because Everwild wasn't even shown off, I don't think, in the showcase today. And that's been something that's been developed for years now by Rare. That's like supposed to be their next big title. We've seen obviously lots of issues with some of the Sea of Thieves seasons over the last several years. So this feels like more of a management issue on the Rare side of things and not Xbox saying, "Hey, can we put a trailer out for to show off your game?" I mean, if anything, that should be something that Rare is wanting. You want to be able to show off your game to get more players in. Super Dad said, "How would Xbox be holding Rare back? I'm new to the game." Yeah, basically the same question I have. I don't think they are. Um, the only thing that you could say that in terms of like Xbox coming in and kind of getting nosy with Rare is in terms of new platform releases. So we talk about the Battle.net one was just recently, and then PlayStation. Those are two things that were coming from Xbox, Microsoft corporate coming down to Rare. But those aren't really that big of deals in my mind either. I mean, that's more just like, hey, you have permission now to go and put your game on more platforms so that it's more popular now and we can keep it going for longer. That's actually a good thing for the game. That's pushing the game forward. If a bad thing, and a thing that would give more credit to what you said is if Xbox said, okay, you have to keep Sea of Thieves exclusive. It cannot be on any other platform because we need to keep this exclusive so that people I have some reason to come back to the Xbox platform. That's what it was for a long time, but now Xbox is pushing it to other platforms to try to be more open, be a little bit more third party like, and that's good for Sea of Thieves. More players is a good thing. Let's see what else we got. Wizard said, if anything, Xbox gave Sea of Thieves the push it needed. The game almost died when it came out. Yep, same thing that I was saying. Dave said they hold Rare back in terms of that we don't get any meaningful content. Yeah, that's not Microsoft or Xbox. Trust me, I bet you Xbox wants a win. They want something that they can say, hey, look at this amazing thing. They want another Pirate's Life. They want another Pirates of the Caribbean where they can show off at an Xbox showcase and say, hey, look at this really cool collaboration we're doing. It's coming out next week or 2 weeks or whatever it was back then. I really don't think it's like I don't want to defend the $1 trillion company or whatever, often, but this is not Xbox or Microsoft's fault. This is management from Rare's side and planning. Xbox and Microsoft aren't coming and saying, hey, y'all should do a Smugglers Tide update where you have a new faction where, you have bigger gunpowder kegs. That's not what Xbox is doing. They're not, that's just not how it works for it. Rare is the ones that are deciding what things are they making updates for. The only thing that I'd say that Xbox probably mandated is they probably wanted the season system. That's probably the only other thing that you could say, and that's probably because it was the trendy thing with live service games. But we don't know. Without any official confirmation, that could have just been Sea of Thieves also wanting to get into that because I think it's easier for them than doing the monthly updates. Super Dad said, I wish I started playing sooner. On day 3000. Hey, anytime you get into the game is a good time to get in. Honestly, it's a little overhyped being from the very beginning. Now that you're in the game, you have so much that you can do, and you're not like someone like me that's kind of waiting for Rare to release new content because you've kind of done everything already. You have tons of stuff that you can still try out. So I wouldn't feel too bad about not playing sooner. Anytime to get in is always a good time to get in. Dave said, okay, right, Battle.net, hold them back from making content. The game did not need Battle.net. Be real, Xbox will give Rare a sales target they have to hit. You're just wrong on this. One, Battle.net, yes, Battle.net is not the same thing as the PlayStation release. PlayStation required a lot more development work, and we talked about that when that happened. That's why we got updates like Season 11 and Season 10, which were lackluster updates, but they were meant to prepare for new players coming in with the PlayStation release. That's why we got Safer Seas in that release. That's why they changed the whole Voyage system all leading up to the PlayStation release. The Battle.net release is not the same because the Battle.net release is basically just doing the same thing that they did with Steam and the Windows version of the game. It's just putting it on another store to buy from. It's really not that big of a deal, in all honesty. The PlayStation one you'd have more credence to, but the Battle.net one, it's literally just making it available on another store to buy from. I don't think it needed to be on Battle.net, so I'm not, disagreeing with that. I'm just saying it's, in terms of development time, it's not an issue. Dave said, no, but Battle.net is PC and 90% of players have Steam. Yeah, that's what I just said. I don't think it needed to be on Battle.net. The PC version of the game was already made. It was made from the very beginning. And then, they already had it ready for when it went to Steam. So all the development work and stuff for putting it onto another store was already done. They could do the same thing with the Epic Game Store. They could put Sea of Thieves on the Epic Game Store, and it would not take much development work at all to make that work. Wizard said, well, any parent company or boss has to give anyone a sales target. It's how things work. I mean, shouldn't Sea of Thieves be profitable at this point? I mean, look how much they're charging for, Pirate Emporium cosmetics and all that stuff. Like, sales targets, I mean, I don't really understand kind of the argument here, to be honest. It's like saying that Xbox should just give them money and then not expect them to be successful. Like, a lot of the critiques that we have about Sea of Thieves come to what Sea of Thieves is doing. The only thing that I think is not all Sea of Thieves' fault is when we talk about, say, season 9, 10, and 11. Those 3 seasons, in retrospect, were in preparation for the PlayStation release and the new players that were coming into the game. Those 3 seasons were needed to make the game easier for new players, but they were very lackluster and not that great updates for players that have been playing for a long time. But other than that, I don't really think there's any argument for, like, say, this update, which is what we talked about. This is what started the whole conversation for anyone that's joining in a little bit later, is that Xbox is holding back this update year, some Smugglers Tide Season 17. Xbox isn't coming in here and saying that they need to make a new faction that's, with gunpowder kegs and armory crates or whatever we're getting with this. So I don't really get the argument here, to be honest, but that's just my thoughts on it. I'll give it a couple more minutes. We've been going for a little bit over an hour, but it's been a fun conversation. I'm happy with, that everyone's been hopping in and chatting. It looks like we're about 50-50 on what y'all think about the new season announcement. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see a little bit more. I'd be interested to hear if y'all think I missed anything in this trailer. I think I kind of caught everything that was of note in this, but Wizard said, happy there's a new faction, but the direction seems lost. If they can do this right, it can be great. I definitely think that Sea of Thieves is a bit lost right now. And I feel like there's tons of ideas that, I've talked about in my own videos, but I know I'm not alone. Many people have talked about it. But you can even go back just to this year. Like, it was, what was it? About the start of this year. Yeah, 10 updates needed for 2025. Like, they could have taken any of those and it probably would have made the game a lot better than what this is. But I still am reserving hope for it. If this is the, stealthy PvP faction of the game, but it's just called Smugglers Tide, I'm all for it. And I'm excited for it. So, I think I'm going to call it a day there. Feel free to keep commenting. I'll try to answer any comments I see on this live stream. And I'll probably edit this into a little video for posting either today or later.